Right, and if people have been let in, who's doing it? Can we exit the recording thing so I can see when people raise their hands? All right. It is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Barre Unified Union School District Board to order. Our first item is additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions from board members? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move.
So moved by Jeff, seconded by Jackie. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next is public comment for items not on the agenda. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that public comment is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the board to listen and hear from the public rather than respond directly during comment. I understand that sometimes this can sometimes feel impersonal, but please know we genuinely welcome and appreciate your feedback and participation. So do we have any public comment for items not on tonight's agenda? Paul?
I do. What I'm trying to understand is you have moved all three of your committee meetings to exactly the same time at the same night.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't understand is how do you expect the public to weigh in on more than just one subject? Just a question. Hope you guys have an answer because it's not really what I call community engagement.
Mm-hmm. So all the meetings are recorded and open to the public. So if there's a meeting, if you want to attend more than one meeting on the same night, you will still have an opportunity to watch the meeting. And there are plenty of ways to communicate with the board. And just as a reminder, Paul, these are advisory committees. They're not decision-making bodies. Decisions lie with the full board.
I understand, and that's exactly precisely my point. They are advisory. And if you want any kind of advisory opinions coming from the members of the community, you yourself could not be at 3 meetings simultaneously if you had 3 items that you want to talk about. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I've never seen it done in my 40-some odd years.
If that's a situation that comes up, we'll note that when we reconsider the format. Thanks so much, Paul. Anyone else for public comment for items not on the agenda? Nancy?
I'd like to follow up to, I'm just thinking about what you said, and I believe I sent an email to the whole board. The meetings are really meetings for the public. So it gives them an opportunity to come and share their concerns, to engage in conversation with board members. If you can't attend all 3, then you're out of luck to even having a conversation. So to me, it's kind of contradictory of what you're trying to do. And this is just my opinion, but if it's a meeting of the public, you certainly are going in the wrong direction. And you're minimizing and you're kind of eliminating people from attending and voicing their opinion. And it kind of feels like that's what you're trying to do. I'm not saying that's your intentions, but unintentionally, you're trying to limit the public from participating in these committee meetings or even having a chance to say anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I will remind folks that there is public comment available during the committee meetings, and they're not conversations. They're business meetings held in public. The public has an opportunity to comment on them. I'd also like to note, as chair of the policy committee, there were approximately 0 members of the public that came for any of those meetings. All right, moving on to current business. Oh, thank you. Rachel?
Still muted.
Muted.
Yeah.
Still muted.
Oh, she's got. There we go.
This is.
Oh, one of those.
Still muted. Rachel, how about I have you email your comment to the full board and so I can move on with the meeting? All right, so under current business, item 4.1 is FY27 budget revote discussion. As we begin this conversation tonight, I want to provide a brief overview of where we are in the process. The first budget vote was held on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, and proposed an overall budget increase of approximately 3.36%. It was not approved by voters. The second vote, held on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, proposed an overall increase of approximately 2.73%. It was also not approved. While what ultimately matters is the cumulative vote, it is worth noting that our most recent May revote was supported by voters in Berry City and opposed by voters in Berry Town, creating a more complex path forward for the board as we consider another revote in a way that is thoughtful, inclusive, and considerate of the many perspectives that exist across our greater community. The May revote also saw approximately 2,665 total voters participate between both the city and the town. According to the November 2025 voter information published by the Vermont Secretary of State, there are approximately 12,565 registered voters between Berry City and Berry Town, meaning turnout for the May revote was approximately 21%. So before we begin this discussion tonight, we'll have a series of prompts that we'll give to the board before opening it up to public comment. But Joanne, I want to turn it over to you because I maybe also have some information for the board.
Sure. So I've been asked to clarify some information that had been published in the Times-Argus after the last Finance Committee meeting. And I must say that I found some of the information a little confusing myself. I was not interviewed. I was not asked any questions about the year-end projection that was provided in the packet to the community that night. I do want to confirm that yes, in that report, it indicated that we had a estimate of $170,000 that would potentially end the year in a deficit. However, I want to remind everyone that that report was completed on April 30th. We still have several months to go. As we end our year, we get a better handle on the received revenues as well as projected expenditures. And so I cannot confidently say that we will end the year with a deficit at this point. Please remember that the district always monitors very closely the revenues and expenditures closely, and we will provide updated information to the board and the community when it is appropriate. So that is all I have to report about the article.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. So as I stated, we will have a series of prompts for board members, and we'll go around to each board member for each of the prompts. Once we are completed with the prompts, we will open it up for the public to weigh in on their thoughts and reflections from the revote. So, prompts for discussion tonight. First, and also one of the prompts at the end will be anything we didn't cover in these prompts. So please don't feel like there'll be an opportunity to share your thoughts about the budget. You're not just restricted to specific prompts. First, what specific concessions or modifications are stakeholders requesting, and are those requests something we can reasonably accommodate? We like to start with, who would like to start? And then we'll go around in order. Or I'll pick someone.
I can start.
Sure.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
So, I think that information would be helpful. If you feel that the district is spending too much, we need to know on what. I haven't heard anything yet.
Emily?
I agree. I think maybe we need another to communicate with the community of what they are requesting. We had a very limited response with our survey, and we did adapt our second budget proposal based on those responses. But it either wasn't enough or people didn't respond to the survey. I suspect much of it is about taxes. It's about money. And there, as our budget process evolved, the yield changed, which improved our tax. The projected tax rate, you know, it was reduced by 4 more cents. So there, a lot of things had happened that we weren't able to fully communicate with people. But yeah, maybe it's good to ask people again, like, what are they requesting with this no vote?
Ian?
So yeah, with the conversations that I've had and the feedback I've received from the community, I haven't heard anything regarding concessions. All I have heard is the taxes are too high. I want to pay less money in taxes. And when I ask, well, what outcomes are you looking for? It's, I want better student outcomes. And then like, okay, what specifically? And I'm never getting any specifics. And so I'm willing, so that's been a point of frustration. Like I'm trying to do the best I can, but I'm not getting the feedback that I need from the community. Or at least I don't feel that I am.
Lindsay?
Been hearing a lot of the same, I guess. One thing I've heard is with enrollment going down, that some folks are looking for a reduction in staff. But I've heard, I think that from what I've seen for the enrollment data by grade and what we have for teachers, is it matches our policy. So we got rid of teachers, we might be out of compliance with our policy. And I've also heard they want to see their principals.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Principals. They want to see rid of principals.
Oh, get rid of. Hey, Jeff?
Like Lindsay, I've heard that come from the community as well, that there's a lot of administrative staff in our district, and when cutting budgets, staffing is a real challenge. And what's at stake? I haven't heard anybody talk about cutting programs. Athletics or arts, I haven't heard anybody in the community bring those up. You hear a lot about taxes and how taxes are crippling a lot of folks, and reworking that formula needs to happen sooner rather than later. But when it comes to us making any changes, that's all I've heard.
Thanks, Jackie.
I mean, I've heard the same. It was voted down because people pay a lot in taxes. As far as specifics, I would echo what everyone here has said. I would call it sort of a hopeful narrative. So when people, from what I can tell, the sort of root cause of this is they feel like costs are out of control, and they are. I mean, labor costs are a response to the costs at large, the cost of groceries, the cost of healthcare, everything. So in that sort of mind space, I've heard a lot of these, again, hopeful narratives. There must be too many administrators. There must be too much spend here. There must be, something going on that we can point to. Or the, at the enrollment. I've heard the enrollment too, even though a lower population density is always more expensive. But again, it's this hopeful narrative, because I think people feel kind of out of control with the costs, and we all do. So, I mean, as far as what we can accommodate, we can't change the economy, so I don't think we can accommodate it. I wrote a note, speaking of finance committee, I think it would be, and also in response to what Joanna said, I think it might be helpful for finance to to go into how to read these budgets. You know, these are predictions. You can't count your eggs before they hatch, or your chickens before they hatch, right? And how does that look in a budget? Because they're complicated, and I think people are looking for this solution, and it's we're doing our best to find it.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, a lot of what I hear is the same, that's been mentioned already. With the budget survey, a lot of those points were brought up, even though it was a small sampling of people. It was the largest categories of what concerned people the most was overall spending, administrative costs, and between staffing levels and unsure. And I think it's that unsure part that is interesting to me, because what we have is a community that has doubts about how this is being put forward. And without addressing the doubts that the community has about our budget, I don't think we're going to be able to connect with those folks that have reservations about voting yes on a school budget. And I think what they're looking for is the school board to take an active role in going through the budget with administration and coming out with something that we have gone through and vetted.
Let's see, I echo what a lot of folks have said here. The primary thing that I heard was a concern about, I would say, the value of education. And I think that leads back to what Ian was saying when he heard from folks about better student outcomes. And so I translate that, how does that line up with the budget? I think people are questioning the value. So how do we speak to that? That might be more in a future outreach question, but those were specific questions I had. I'm going to continue to move through the prompts. I don't, and there'll be a chance to speak on generally outside the prompts after. So for the second prompt, should additional tax stabilization money be used? So, Catherine, if I could start with you this time.
I don't think additional tax stabilization money should be used. I think that takes away from the work that we need to be doing and ensuring that the budgets are where they should be. It kind of use an overused verbiage, kicks the can down the road. And I think we need to really work with what we're dealing with, and the tax stabilization should be there for future use if needed. But we've been using a lot of that in the past few years, and if that's not there, then we really have a problem to deal with. So I'd rather deal with it and have it than not have it.
Jackie?
So I mean, fiscally, we probably should leave it. However, I don't think it's entirely up to the board. It's up to the community. And they've spoken pretty loud and clear that they want lower. And I think if they saw any sort of surplus that we didn't tap into or use a good amount of, I think they would lose faith in that we were listening to them. I think we have to.
Jeff?
I'm unsure whether we should or shouldn't, and I'm still mulling it over. Thanks.
Lindsay?
So I would have to do some math on what would still be left in there and what's the percentage of that of our budget, because are we only supposed to, I think, just keep 5% or something in the fund? So I would have to look into it more, but I think it's supposed to be used to reduce the tax. Which was supposed to be like 5% from last year's budget. Pretty fine.
That would actually be a board policy, or expectation. There are districts that keep 1%, some keep more than that in a reserve for that to happen. But we have not really talked about what our goal is at the board level, and I think that's a discussion we need to have going forward.
Yeah, I read something like the limit is 5%.
Maybe that's the limit. Okay.
So I guess I don't know what the math is off the top of my head on what we have left in there, so it's less than 5%. I think we can keep it there for rainy day, but if it's more than 5%,
Yeah.
So for me personally, the answer would be no. But with that, there's a caveat. With members of the community I've spoken to, a lot of the individual, a lot of parents and those who have students in our schools, they have said that the higher taxes is a fact of life that, yeah, it's unpleasant, but that's the cost of living in society. However, the most vocal people who have been most vocally against the budget have always been asking for lower taxes without stating how to do that. So in order to appease them, I don't know of any other way short of to fulfill their wishes other than to dip into it, because they haven't given any other meaningful guidance.
Emily?
In the past, we have committed to using a lot of tax stabilization dollars in past budgets, under the rationale of saying we're giving the money back to the taxpayers. This is taxpayer money and they would like it back. And I think that still is true. This is taxpayer money. It is intended to provide relief for our tax bill. I think that it is a Band-Aid that doesn't solve the problem, but we don't have the tools to solve the problem on our local board. So I think we have to look carefully at the numbers of how much money we're going to use, what the impact that is on our budget, and how to use it most effectively.
Okay, Juliana?
I'm split. I would say in the past, I would definitely say we need to hold on to it. But in previous years, I think we've been reckless on how we used it for tax stabilization. The chunks were much larger, and now we're dealing with a smaller pool of money that will help, but really won't help in the larger scheme of things. So I'm torn.
Yeah, for me, I echo that too. I think it's always better to have money saved up for when we need it. I also hear what people are saying with how do we help lower the burden of taxpayers. So, I would lean towards no, but I also feel conflicted about it. Do you feel you got answers there? Okay. All right, third. What should our community outreach and communication plan look like moving forward to ensure transparency and help rebuild consensus before the next vote? On that same note, are there additional pieces of information we should be presenting to help the community better understand the request before them? I can repeat that if anyone needs it.
Yeah.
What should our community outreach and communication plan look like moving forward to ensure transparency and help rebuild consensus before the next vote? And is there any additional pieces of information we should be presenting? Joanna, want to start?
Sure, that's it. I think we need to explain it so that our kids understand what's going on. Yeah, I think it should be broken down in simpler terms that they can understand why we're doing this, why the process is so confusing and hung up. I think if we can do that, we might actually reach more people.
You, Emily?
I think we need help with communication. Um, Sending out flyers, sending out text and emails to people is not working. I wonder what kind of resources the VSBA could point us in. I wonder what kind of resources other districts could share with us to help us with the communication plan. One that involves all the communication tools in the district's disposal. I think we need to look at someone outside coming in to give us some advice there.
Ian?
So with the outreach, I agree with Emily that we probably should bring in an external resource to help us with this. One other variable is, and I just want to stress just the importance of the entire board being on a unified front, maintaining the same message publicly, because that is critically important for our community.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I agree with having. I think somebody from the outside has to come in.
Anything else? No? Jeff?
Yeah, I feel like we've tried a lot of and used a lot of diligence to get the word out, and it just didn't seem to work outside. Yeah, it might be helpful.
Jackie?
Yeah, I agree with Giuliano. I think some kind of simple sort of all-encompassing talking points or videos, something that can be shared at little to no expense to the district. I think that backfired, us trying to communicate. So yeah, I agree with Giuliano about having some very, very simple, concise messaging.
You, Catherine?
I think community outreach should not be a perennial exercise that comes around every budget season. I think community outreach is an obligation of the board all year, every year. And that when we get to the budget time and we lose a vote, that is screaming that we are not communicating throughout the year. The community comes to talk with us, people try to share things with us. If we are shutting them down regularly, they're not going to want to participate in when we decide. They want to participate when they decide. And I think that as a board, we need to be more open to receiving feedback and input from the community all year. And I think that will make everything go smoother, and we won't need any special help to get that out there, because we'll have those connections and relationships all the time.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everyone here. I do agree about simple talking points, simple graphics, explaining points of where we are in the process, what we control versus what the state controls. I think there's some people whose minds we won't change on that, but if we get the right information out still, that's important. I agree with having an outsider perspective. That would be refreshing. And I agree with Catherine. My old role, or my old major before working in libraries was communications and PR. And the first rule is you have to do it all the time. You can't just do it when you want someone to do something. So maybe reaching to service clubs, having a process at some public meetings like that. Barry's hard because what's unique about Barry is that there's so many different groups and perspectives, but the challenge is there's a lot of different bases to cover. So it's definitely a challenge, but it's a good challenge to get out there and meet folks where they're at and hear from them. So I keep thinking of service clubs like Rotary, which one is going away? Whatever two are still around. And there are other groups beyond those, but those are what are coming top of mind right now. Go to these people. There are things we just don't see in our feeds. It's easy for things to get lost digitally. So I think we do need to go to people however we can to cover all of our bases. And it's going to be hard. It's a lot of work. So before I go around to kind of give everyone a chance to say what's on your mind beyond what were the prompts, I'll also remind that this will be the last chance to speak about the budget revote. Our next agenda item is about timeline, and that we have a meeting in less than a week, and the budget will be on the agenda again. So this isn't the last chance to weigh in. So with that said, is there anyone that would like to start with final thoughts, or I can just pick someone?
I'll go.
All right, Ian.
Just with the budget vote and revotes, I'll admit it's been frustrating. But I think this is something we can get through. That there are just a lot of competing priorities going on right now, and a lot of information that we're waiting on from the state that even the state hasn't clarified the yield and everything. So admittedly, I understand the community, it's hard for the community to make a decision on a vote when we don't have all the facts. So I wish we weren't in this situation, but we are, and we're going to do the best we can to get through this.
Lindsay?
So I don't think that we need to necessarily even go to these special groups to communicate with them. There's plenty of times people come here to talk to us, and we never are able to have a dialogue. And I know we can't do it at every board meeting, but we need to have a dialogue with the community. They come here, they've spoken to the board on multiple occasions. We don't have a dialogue with them. So I think we need to have a meeting, and it needs to be on a more regular basis, not just budget time, where we do have a back and forth with the community to engage on. And then, if there's other opportunities, that would be great. I am concerned about the financial stuff. From what it looks like to me, it's just not. We're down in the business office, and it's showing. And I don't know what the plan is to rectify that situation. And it is not doing us any favors when it comes to the budget vote. You know, we just had the article in there, and I think that's because things are not current in there, or we don't have somebody available to explain to us, and I don't think the encumbrance may be put in correctly or something. I feel like something may be off there. And there's other reductions that we have heard of outside of the budget that I don't know why they're not reflected in the budget. Why we're not talking about those reductions. It was like last year we lost summer school, nobody knew it. And I believe that there's similar things happening in the budget this year that we're not aware of.
Jeff?
You know, there's a few things. The vote wasn't terribly far off. All right, it passed in the city, it didn't pass in the town. And I feel like part of the misunderstanding about school success and student outcomes is a little bit misrepresented. And I'm just thinking out loud here because I've heard this from the community and I'm listening to everybody talk about some ideas why, but think about it's a pretty small margin that it didn't pass by. And there's some folks who have a misunderstanding of student success in school regarding student outcomes based on like standardized state testing and how that's published. And we're like looked at in a poor fashion for so many different reasons, but just because numbers suggest that we're not out competing different cities in our state, the metric is flawed. It is an important data point, but I will say it out loud, it is very flawed and it's misrepresenting of how we're doing here. And I feel like if we change a little bit of the tone, how we talk and think about our schools in the community, to be proud of them, to continue to highlight and look at the things that we're doing well, which we are already doing as a board. I'm just saying like all of us could continue to do it even more frequent, even more loudly, even more assertively, because we are doing amazing things. I talk to the kids in my neighborhood all the time. They're jazzed. I mean, the Fill the Bowl fundraiser the other night, I wasn't able to be in attendance, but I heard it was awesome. The musical performance coming up in the city by Andrea Seacheck is really exciting and awesome. I feel like having only 2,500 people vote out of 12,000 was like a little bit of an embarrassment. I don't know why we can't get people to the polls to vote yes for our budget because our students deserve it. And I think if we continue to change that conversation around state standardized testing and how we are looked at and judged negatively, maybe that might help change the needle on, getting people out to vote.
Jackie?
I'm glad you said that, Jeff. And I was thinking, with some of these comments, there's a lot of sort of fear and mistrust and before you spoke, I was thinking how scary it must be to look at something you don't understand and be afraid of it and turn against it, right? And then I realized, with what you're saying, which is true, by the way, that the standardized testing is good for a very narrow range of judgment. We just need to focus on what we're good at, which is educating. And you're an educator, look at something you don't understand and embrace it and try to learn more. And if we could bring that energy to the community, I don't think we'd have any more. Because a lot of what we're hearing is this mistrust based on a lack of understanding. And if we could just learn to embrace that lack of understanding as just the first step in understanding, I think we'd have a lot more success.
Catherine?
Yeah. Couple different things. There's the plan that we should have as a board as to how we're going to go about ensuring that we're doing our job in looking at things from education, from test scores, because unfortunately we don't have any other metrics really to go by at this point other than the test scores, and every other state in the country uses it for better or for worse. We have to have something that's standard. That's our standard. Are there other things that make up a person, that make up an education, that make up a life? Yes, of course. But that's not really all of it. I think that when people bring that up during the budget discussion, that's a part of what they're worried about. But the budget discussion is about the budget. It's about what we're spending. And I think that we really need to look at, like, I agree 100% with what Lindsay said with our business office and the numbers that are getting put out. I know in the Barrytown annual report, I was made aware that published numbers in there were higher. They were not accurate numbers for what the teacher salaries were. And I know a lot of people will take that annual report. That's one of the first things they turn to is salaries. And they go and look at it, and those were not accurate. Is that from a business office oversight? Is that from that? I don't know. But I know that when information gets put out to the public, we've got to do everything we can to make sure that it's accurate and up to date and that it's clear. And that goes along with what Giuliano said earlier about making things simple and easy to understand for people. I also think we should really look at the decision that we made about changing our annual meeting to May, because here we are in May and we still don't have a budget. And I don't know as if I really want to be here any other years doing this. I think we might want to reconsider whether we don't keep our annual meeting in March rather than May, because I don't really see where the benefit of waiting till May would come from at this point. That would be a discussion for a different day, but that just came to my mind as we were discussing. And once again, I agree with what you had said earlier, Garrett, about communication is something you do every day. And that's what we're here for as the board, is we're the liaison from the community to the school. And our job is to represent both to each other the best that we can. And that's something that is going to require much better communication than what we've been having going forward. The information that I read in the newspaper, I just don't even know anymore whether like that's what we can rely on or not, because if that's the case, it sounds like if we think that we have some sort of a windfall of money, that we don't have to look at the budget. We're okay. We have a little cushion in there. And I don't think that's what the public really wants to hear either. So when are we as the board going to sit down and do the work of taking care of the finance part?
Juliana?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around less than 10,000 people didn't show up to vote. Yeah, I pulled into the parking lot and it's packed with cars. They're not here to listen to us. They're not here to give us information on how we should spend their money. They're here for athletics. What are we doing that's wrong? Yesterday, we celebrated Memorial Day, and the sacrifices that people made. And those sacrifices are, the opportunity to vote. And we fall really short on that. And that leads to less information that we have. And how are we supposed to make decisions on our students, our children, when we don't have the information? When more than 2,000 people stated their opinion, that's not a lot. So what do we do with that? We just guess. And the loud majority, whether it's yes or no, rules the day. And I find that pretty upsetting.
Emily?
Yeah, I really feel that, Giuliano, and this disengagement and indifference from parents is really hard. I know that we're all busy and a lot of things on our plate, but that's something that we really have to wrap our arms around and work hard to change. And the other thing that's really strikes me in our community too is that there are people who are actively working hard so that our budget fails, and they're celebrating when it does. And that hurts us all. This is our 7th failed budget since I've been on the board. This is maybe 6 or 7, and this is the beginning of my 4th year. And that's not a good reputation for our community, that we can't support schools. And I see so many homes right now for sale, and I think, well, who is going to come here and say, wow, this community can't afford their schools? Like, families aren't coming here, kids aren't coming here. It really hurts us. So I have some questions that these prompts brought up, which I thought were really great. How much admin is too much? That's what I want to know when we're talking about having too much admin. What does that mean? Right now, admin makes up 9% of our staff. Is that a top-heavy percentage? I don't know. Like, I would like to find out more about that. In terms of our communication plan and positive things that we could talk about, I think that we don't talk enough about our continuous improvement plan. And we're seeing some really good progress there and growth in our staff and our students. So I would like to talk about that more. And I agree, standardized testing is really hard. I asked for the data of my student, and just even across all of the data and the tests that I received, the results were so different. In one test, he is performing above proficiency, and in another test, he is not. So it's really hard even to know what that means and how we're using that data. So thank you.
Thank you to everyone for sharing your thoughts and entertaining those prompts. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Ian, I'm going to ask you if you could keep the time for us, and then the next agenda item will be the timeline. So just to throw that out there before we open it up for public comment on what everyone just heard. Would anyone like to go? Paul?
Might as well go. Is my clock ready to go? Because I missed here. Because I'm on a speed track, I just don't want you people not to hear it.
All right.
First thing, what I noticed within the budget and within the audit report, our sped ed expenses were down this year. It's interesting because our facilities budgets were up. We actually went quite a bit over budget on that. The student population has been trending down, and the forecast is going to continue to trend down. Test scores are not top flight. Anybody can see that. There's a real shift. There wasn't any real shift in the budget when you presented the first time to the second time. A couple of positions moved back and forth across the line. It's not really a budget cut. And you use a little bit more of the fund balance. Using those fund balances up is going to put you in a real dire place next year. Because right now what's happening in the legislature, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of monies coming in to education, and our highway departments and everything else are also equally affected. That's the scramble right now. You know, this comes down to a philosophy of problems that we have here. I just heard Ms. Reynolds say that, you know, there's a divisiveness in what she presented. Certain people champion defeating the budget, and then people, you know, want to see the budget succeed. That's divisive talk. what we have to deal with is the real numbers. There's 1,000 lines or more of budget, and I don't believe every one of the board members here has actually gone through every single line and compared that over the course of, say, 2 or 3 years. If you'd done that, you would have found the same things that we were able to find in past boards. The information we used to send out, this is one of my big problems, the information we used to send out before Act 46, when we were 3 schools, we had publications that were 25 pages long. I still got them. Now you send out a postcard that has about 1 inch of data. And some of that wasn't even accurate, but that's just 1 inch of data. And you want to know why the public doesn't quite understand what it is you're trying to transmit? You might start with that. You know, the best kept secret to passing a budget is just getting everybody engaged in what that budget is and what is it being used for. Those publications I spoke about lent itself directly to that. We have issues where you want to engage the community, but you have things that, Joanne, you said we shouldn't read the article and there's a lot of misstated facts in that.
I did not say that, Paul.
But
I did not say that.
If the article's right, there's commentary in here that really hurts people in the public.
Yeah.
And I will express those real quickly. We shouldn't be picking winners and losers. We're talking about educating our kids. There's nobody staying in the room that.
That's your time.
I had something important. I'll do it.
That's your time. Anyone else?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes, I want to kind of talk about communication, as you're looking for ways to communicate with the community. I'm going to go back to your committees. You're not making it welcoming for people to come here and want to engage in conversations with you, so you hear what they have to say. You're saying you want to, but yet your actions are saying just quite the opposite. I have a lot of people tell me that they don't come here because you tell them that they got 1 minute or whatever, or you just don't want to hear them, or they don't get answers, and they're not allowed to engage in just a simple little conversation or just ask a question to get an answer back. You've done a great job of telling the community that we're here, we want to engage with you, but don't show up, and if you do, we're only going to allow you to attend something. So I think there's a long ways that communication can be worked out. And to spend money on getting somebody in here to tell you just what we're all seeing is kind of a waste of taxpayer money. The other thing is, I think you might want to have a conversation with the Zoe Saunders, Secretary of Education, because she is out there basically telling everybody that the test scores, the student education is declining and it's continuing. So I don't know the answers, I don't know why, but that's a huge reason, and that's what I hear, is that the education is not being given to the students that they need. Now, I don't know much about it, but I do know what I hear from the Secretary of Education, and I think that needs to be recognized, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. People putting their houses up for sale because they can't afford to live here anymore. It's not for anybody going around trying to defeat the budget. They can't afford to live here because of the taxes. And if you had a school, if the test scores or the education was top notch or even up to where it was supposed to be, you probably have people moving here and be willing to pay the taxes. But they're getting overtaxed and the education isn't there. I hear a lot of students, a lot of parents say that when their students graduating, they're having to do remedial classes at universities and colleges. I have a niece that had to do that. I think that until you guys start having those hard conversations about being realistic about what really is going on, about getting a budget passed, and I agree, communication is you're not very welcoming on that at all with the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Rachel?
Hi, can you hear me? I think I got it.
Yes.
I switched to my phone. Thank you. I really agree with so many things that were said earlier. One of them being Catherine brought it up, and Garrett, you echoed it, that this communication really needs to happen all the time. I think about the students. We don't we try and have, I forget what the best ratio is, 8 positives to 1 negative. I don't want to think the only time that the board is reaching out is when we need to pass a budget. I don't think that's the reality, but I do hear that's some of the perception. So I think having ongoing communication, meeting people where they are, it's great. I think about the concerts in the park. I remember I've gotten popcorn before there and sunglasses, I think, from the district a couple of years ago. I think the communication is an example of some short-sightedness. For example, we used to have a communications director, so we are not that I'm saying we necessarily need that, but that was one way we made that investment, and then there was a lot of positive communication about what's going on in the district. I know another meeting, someone mentioned, why didn't we get grant money? Well, we cut the grant writer. So I think that's really important. We need to think not just what dimes can I save today? What is really going to be an investment for our community? I think the test scores going down, that is not, Barry is not the only place that's happening. Yet Barry is one of the only places that still hasn't passed a budget. A couple of years ago, we were the last to pass the budget, the only ones to go past July 1st. One thing I do know, that spending less money does not mean you're going to have better test scores. I know that for sure. I think about the different positions that other schools have, other interventionists I'd love to have. I think the other thing is the outcomes of our students. I see all the time in the community. A student I used to work with worked on my car. I saw another student working at a creamy place. We see those outcomes, and I think we do have to look at test scores, but we also need to look at other things and what our students are doing, because they are more than just test scores. So thank you. And I'm hearing also from people that they're frustrated with some of the information coming out and the division that this is creating. And they don't feel welcome sometimes. Saying don't feel welcome to comment in Front Porch Forum about supporting the budget. Don't feel welcome coming to meetings because
Thank you, Rachel. Ellen K.
Hi, Ellen K. Berry City. Thank you for this discussion tonight. I want to say, first of all, a budget is a moral document. It's a statement of values. Our budget has gone down every year that I can remember, having been here, and I don't know if it's all the years I've lived here, but certainly for the past few years, lower and lower and lower. And I echo what Rachel says, lower per pupil spending does not improve education. It's never going to improve education. I also want to bring out what Juliana or what Jeff talked about, which is that a tiny percentage of our voters voted this down, and half of those voted it down. The other half voted it up. Roughly half, right? Not enough to win. And it's divided, as it often is, between Berry City and Berry Town. Berry City being lower income, higher poverty, and yet we understand, the majority of us understands that we need to fund our schools. It's the thing that brings kids out of poverty. So I just need to call out that we are spending an inordinate amount of time and energy listening to the small majority of people, many of whom are not poor, many of whom want to keep that money in their own pockets and not give it to poor kids to pull us all up, to lift all boats. And that needs to be said out loud. I don't know, there's some funny background noise here and it's not coming from my speaker. Maybe somebody's unmuted. It's distracting. Sorry. Could somebody figure out where that noise is coming from?
It's not coming from here.
It's not
coming from here.
Yeah. It's like impossible to keep my train of thought. So hope you'll give me 10 more seconds or something so I can get it back. Yeah, I am concerned that we are catering to a small and vocal majority. The answer is to get those voters out who care about schools, and get back on track. But if we undercut our schools over and over again, it is by definition defunding, and our community will be much the poorer for it and already is. We need to support these kids. I don't make a lot of money, and I am happy to pay what I have to pay to keep our schools afloat and keep them thriving. So I would ask you, all of you people who may be listening or maybe in the room who do have the money, to think about where you want that money to go. Do you want it to go to your next vacation? Do you want it to go to your next car? Do you want it to go to whatever luxury
Thank you,
thing,
Ralph.
or the schools? Thank you.
Lisa, Leota?
Thank you, Garrett, and thank you for providing this forum for us to come and make our comments known. I didn't prepare a statement, but I jotted down some notes, and I want to respond to a lot of things I heard here tonight. I hear a lot of complaining about test scores, and I also hear a lot of complaining about the budget. And those two things have gone hand in hand in these meetings. And the analogy that comes to my mind is the beatings will continue until morale improves. And I believe money significantly improves educational outcomes. And if we're concerned about the test scores and how well our students are doing, the school has got to be well funded. It just has to be. And Emily is spot on when she said there are people actively working in this community to drag down the budget every single time, and it will never be low enough for them. And I just want to acknowledge that because I've heard them, and we all have. And I believe it was Paul who called her out on something like that, and it's absolutely true. The second thing is, I want both Barries to be a place where people want to live. They want to raise their families. They want to start families. They want to come here because we have great schools. And when we have these board meetings where there's so much bickering and complaining and mistrust of the administration, it doesn't do us any good. I believe the budgets that have been prepared are fair and reasonable. I trust our superintendent. I trust our administration. And this nitpicking of every single line item in a budget and suggesting that you guys do that again is ridiculous. Let's just pass the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. James?
Hey, thank you. The feedback is coming from your meeting. I'm not sure what's going on with the mic, but that's where the microphone is messing up. So just to kind of piggyback on what a lot of people are saying, I think the biggest takeaway here is that the outreach needs to happen well before any budget comes to pass. And how that outreach happens is not, it's not rocket science. I think if the community saw all the good things our schools are doing and increased test scores, there wouldn't be any question about, is 9% or 10% admin too much money? I think the question comes into play is, are we getting what we're paying for with that money? And as much as a teacher, I hate that idea of teaching to the test, that's where the rubber hits the road. And so what are our admin at each school doing to make sure that those test scores reflect our students' true ability? And then what is the school doing to make sure that all the great things that our schools do is getting put out to the community year round? So just kind of echoing, I think this is a low enough budget. I don't think we need to get any lower, but if the community's speaking, and they are, either through a no vote or through apathy, so the idea that only so many people came out to vote, well, that just tells you the rest of the voters don't care either way. And so we want to make sure that we're putting forth a school that the community can be really proud of, and that they know all the great things our school does, and that our kids are performing really well. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And so I'd like to see our board stick strong on this budget amount, but really hold the admin's feet to the fire and say, listen, our community's who has decided to speak has spoken loud and clearly. We need to see improved test scores. We want to see all of the great things we're doing year round, not just when we're asking for money. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, James.
Garrett,
Vern?
I can't raise my hand, so when you're ready, will you call on me, please?
Yep, and you have the floor.
Oh, okay, thank you. Hi, this is Bern Rose. I don't know why my name doesn't show up, but anyway. I wanted to add on to something that James just said about highlighting what we're doing really well. And after visiting school and participating in school, there's so much that I see every time I go. I see kids who are learning, kids who are not just learning things and facts and how to do math and read, but they're learning how to be together, how to be social. They're learning about the culture of school. They're learning to play together. They're learning to respect each other. They're learning to work collaboratively. And those are things that are really hard to test for. I really love going to the empty bowls and seeing several groups of teachers and to all the parents and family nights. And I would encourage more community people to show up when school's having functions like this so that they can be a part of the excitement of learning and to volunteer with something like Everybody Wins or one of the sports teams. There are just a lot of ways, and they don't have to take up a ton of time, but highlighting all the good things that our students are doing, despite really huge challenges for some of them in their home lives and in their community. So that's what I'm here to just say is more of the good stuff, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bern. Justin?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say briefly, just to piggyback on what a lot of other people are saying here, is that I agree that test scores are not mutually exclusive with student outcomes. And my first thought, people that are, against the budget, citing those things, is always that it makes no logical sense to me to not give schools money if you're trying to increase performance. That just doesn't, I haven't seen anybody advance an argument that the best way to do is to take money away from schools if they think that the students are underperforming. That just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that, I've tried to look always for agreement and consensus, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think that there is a vocal minority of folks who are very loudly celebrating defeat of the budget. And as a property owner, I don't want to pay more property taxes than anyone else. But schools are important. They're a public good, and I think that there's a lot of folks who for their own reasons, don't want to contribute any of their money. As somebody said, I think there is a shared attitude of some folks. I'm in Barrytown. I think there's a shared attitude of some folks here that it will never be low enough. And to me, that's just crazy. I think that the social contract is that we need to support our public schools because it's a public good. And I think that the school board focusing on student outcomes, I think is definitely a great way to get more folks, year round, is a great way to get more folks to realize the good that the schools are doing and how the students, are coming out in a great place for the community and what they're doing for our community. So more year round outreach, I think, is a great idea, and to focus on those outcomes, I think is very important. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Justin. Nathan?
Hi, this is Nathan. I would just like to echo what Justin said, and I believe Lisa and Bern as well. Apologies if I got that wrong. That if you're going to worry about the outcome of students, whether you want to use test scores or some other metric, those are not going to improve by continuing to decrease the budget and fail the budget over and over again. So if that is truly the concern from the people who are voting no, then maybe find another solution or come up with a positive solution rather than just saying no to everything.
Thank you, Nathan. Christy?
Hi there, this is Christy Amodio from Barrytown. I had a couple thoughts. One being that it was spoken about like simplifying language so students can understand, and the topic of like doing what we're good at in education, and thinking about using that as a tool for getting more people to understand or educate, like maybe some a video presentation or something of the budget and like the strengths, and breaking it down in ways in plain language that more people can understand, not just the students but everyone. Not everyone's in finance or might understand all the things, and they just see these big numbers. So I think simplifying that and doing it in a way that it could break it down, and some, especially the pain point areas where people want to attack, could be helpful. And then my other thought was, we're talking about spotlighting outside of test scores, because I don't take a lot of stock in test scores myself because I never tested well, but I'm successful. Is my old high school does like alumni spotlights that I see posted. So they, are students that aren't students there showing success stories and stuff like that. So maybe something like that could be helpful. But those are just a couple of thoughts that I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. All right. Seeing no other hands for public comment, I'm going to move on to agenda item 4.2, FY27 budget revote date. And at this point, I will turn it over to Joanne to go over what was attached in our packet.
So, yes, I wanted folks to know that we consulted with the town clerks around availability, and it really did not seem that there was an appropriate June date for us to have enough time to decide about a revote number and to get out a community engagement plan. So if the board wants to follow what you did in my first year, when parents and people are back from vacation, it seems like the second Tuesday of September might work. We do have a primary in August. My worry is that a lot of folks are still going to be on vacation, and we have potential to get low numbers unless we can get a lot of absentee ballots out there and people voting. But certainly the dates are up to you. Just wanted to give you some background information, and so that you can make a decision. And from that decision, we can make a backwards design plan concerning what we need to do to make any changes.
Any questions from the board? Thoughts from the board? Jeff?
Well, I'm just wondering about, I mean, the primary might be the best way to get people to the ballots because there's other things on the ticket. And I don't know if waiting until November, of course, that sounds like way late. That's crazy.
Really late.
But it might be our best opportunity to get people to the ballots, even despite it being August. And people might be out of town or something like that.
Ian?
So with the primary, I'm leaning towards September because we want to have as much of the community, at least for me, what I'm thinking is we want to have as much of the community present, and August is prime time for people to be on vacation, to be hanging out at their camp. And if they're at a camp that's up towards the border or elsewhere in the state, that driving here on a Tuesday when they're away, they're not going to do that. And sure, they could do a mail-in ballot, but that's a lot of work too. So what I'm thinking is, or at least for me, I think September 15th is probably where it's at, because we'll have as many of the parents here. And since school's already there, it's already on their mind.
Just so Lindsay knows, we're on 4.2 now about the budget revote timeline. You don't have to comment now. I just want you to know where we're at in the agenda. Emily?
I support September 15th as a revote date.
Jackie?
I just Googled the Vermont turnout for the primary elections was 8/13/2024. City had a 14.73% and town had a 17.3% turnout, which was less than our 21. So I would not suggest doing it in August. I would support September. I mean, I could look up November, but I feel like people would get overwhelmed if it was tacked on to the main ballot. So yeah, I would support September just based on those numbers. I don't think we're gonna get the turnout for the primary regardless, unfortunately.
Yeah, make a comment. As you remember last year, or the first year that I was here, we did borrow money from the bank. We did not have to use it, therefore we did not have to pay the interest. If you did go to a November vote, I would guarantee that we would have to use some of the from borrowing and be paying the interest, just for a point of information.
Thank you. Before I ask anyone for a motion, I want to make sure that there's people that aren't feeling strongly about Lindsay.
Is there a reason that we don't want to do the vote before July 1st?
We can't.
So,
What do you mean we can't? I only saw 2 days in June that we could it, and one was a Friday. Unless that was a typo.
It was a typo.
Is there any?
It would have to be warned by the 29th.
For what date?
For June 30.
For June 30th.
Because it has to be a 30-day warning.
And we don't have the numbers yet, so.
No.
But I don't know. How are we gonna come up with a budget to vote on? I feel like car horse.
Oh, I mean, we'll still come up with a budget that we'll send to voters. It's just going to happen.
But if we only have one more meeting.
You will have several meetings over the summer if it's September.
So I guess what we're kind of doing is working backwards. What's our date we want to pick? Because that will determine when we need to warn a budget by, right? And then that, so how much, I guess that's kind of the question for the warrant. How much time? Also, we're talking a lot about specific dates and turnout, which is important, but how much time do we need?
So for September 15th, we have to warn it by August 15th.
About.
Juliana?
September's fine. I just kind of find it amusing where we're talking about how getting votes and people on vacation when it's too expensive to support schools. So September's fine. Let's do September.
Is there?
That was my motion.
So
Yeah.
there's been
Let's
a
do
motion
September.
by Giuliano for September 15th, 2026 to be our budget revote date, seconded by Emily. Discussion?
Yeah, did all board members have the opportunity to weigh in? If they felt inclined they wanted to?
Well, there's a motion on the table and we're in discussion, so if anyone would like to weigh in before I open public comment. Emily?
I support moving to September 17th.
17th or 15th?
Sorry, 15th. Also, the 18th is my birthday, so I'm planning ahead. To warn a budget to vote on in June would require us to approve a budget by Friday. And I don't think we have time for that. So I think that voting again in September makes sense for us. I hope that we get the same outcome as a new superintendent and a new budget. Hopefully that works. I'm worried that people will start to think that's our new normal, but maybe it will be. So.
Any other comments from the board before I close discussion, open up public comment? Hearing none, I'll open up public comment, starting with Paul.
I have to say that I agree with the board to look at it September 15th date. You're going to have information this week coming out from the legislature on what's going to happen with the education funding bills itself and yield and so forth as part of that. And that's a great consternation on itself. Secondly, the citizens of Berry City will have in hand, without guessing, their actual tax evaluations as well as what their expected taxes would be on what that CLE impact would be. I don't know how that's going to go down. It's going to be a great curiosity piece. I think it also gives you time to actually look at this budget in detail. From my knowledge and all my years that I've been involved with this, both on the board and off the board, I've never seen a budget that was lower than the previous year's budget, ever. So we've been hearing comments that we're reducing budgets. That's not the case. You may be reducing the increase in the budget, but you've never gone underneath what you had the previous year. Not in my 40 years anyways.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Any other public comment?
Garrett Bernadette here.
Is it Bern or Rachel that was first? I guess I'll go with you first, Bern.
Okay, I'm so sorry, but I can't raise my hand for whatever reason.
That's okay.
I heard someone say that they thought about doing mail, mail-in ballots for everybody. And I think that the August date is a state primary, and those ballots will be going out to everybody, unlike the earlier local elections, which you have to apply for an absentee ballot. So if that makes a difference to anyone, is that the August primary will be balloted from, paid for by the state. And I think there must be a way for us to piggyback on that, but I'm not sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Bern. Rachel?
Thanks. I definitely agree with Paul's earlier statements about having Berry City will have more information, so that's a good thing. And sorry, Mr. Gravy's interrupting me. And there was another point he brought up I agreed with. Knowing what the legislature is going to do. We should know by then. And then also, I'm hearing that some people might appreciate having someone new come in and look over the budget. So that would be another plus. And again, I think our last time we voted in June, turnout was not great. So thank you. I think it was Jackie who had shared some voter data. I think that's really helpful.
All right, thank you. Last call for public comment. All right, hearing none. Sorry, Paul, you already had your public comments. I'm going to close.
Second opportunity once everybody was heard.
No, that's never been the rules. No, that's never been the rules. I'm going to close public comment. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add before the vote?
I do. I would, if the board pleases, I would like to withdraw my motion if the board would like to find out if what Bernadette said was true.
Oh boy, is it true?
I don't know. I have not heard
I
that.
might be able to solve this.
Okay.
So the exceptionally low rates of turnout include absentee ballots.
Okay.
So it doesn't.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
Emily?
The Secretary of State mails out ballots in all primary, not primary, in all general elections in November, but that does not include primary in August.
It's a good idea though. It doesn't.
It does not.
Okay, so the motion is on the table still for a September 15th, 2022 revote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Before we adjourn, our next
15th or 22nd.
15.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I was like, I thought I heard 22nd. I was like, wait, what?
I think I said the 15th. I hope so. Okay. Okay, so before we adjourn, our next meeting is next Monday, June 1st at 6 p.m. However, there will be a location change because there's a conflict. This board meeting will be held at Berry City Elementary and Middle School's library. I repeat, the next board meeting will be at Berry City Elementary and Middle School's school library due to a conflict of an art show and a concert happening here in the Spalding High School library. Lindsay?
Will there be a sign for me to know where to go? Because I don't know where the library is. I know where the multipurpose room and the gym is.
Yes, there will be.
Yes. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Ian, seconded by Jackie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:26.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.